Here's your shot at winning $1,000. Text the national keyword FAST right now to 95819. That's FAST to 95819. We'll text you back to confirm your entry. Data and messaging rates may apply. Please don't text and drive. It's 5K a day on WMAL. Now on 105.9 FM and streaming worldwide on the WMAL app. O'Connor and Company.
7:07 now. It's O'Connor and Company this Tuesday morning, 14th day of October. Big day here as President Trump returned, I think, at 3 a.m. after his odyssey to the Middle East. He's back in time to bestow the Presidential Medal of Freedom to Charlie Kirk posthumously on this, his birthday. Quite a time we're witnessing here in your nation's capital. Glad we can have a front row seat with you. Coming up in 30 minutes, we'll talk to Andy Harris, Congressman of Maryland, about the government shutdown. 8:05, Alex Pleitsis worked on hostage policy with the White House years ago. 8:35 brings us the Lieutenant Governor of Virginia, your next governor, it appears, the way things are moving. Crossing fingers. Winsome Earl Sears will be our guest. It's Larry O'Connor with Sean Kennedy all morning long. He of Virginians for Safe Communities. Good morning, Sean.
Good morning, Larry.
And now I need you to be on your best behavior because one of good friends of our program, and I'll be honest with you, he can be a little ornery sometimes. Matt Schlapp, chairman of the American Conservative Union and the head of CPAC. Although, Matt, I got to guess you're in a good mood like most people witnessing the incredible events of the Middle East over the last several days. Good morning, Matt.
I know that you and my wife, Mercedes, must have told some stories about me. I just know it over coffee. I just know it.
She, you know what? She has to let off some steam now and again. You know, every wife needs a man friend that she can say, "Am I crazy or is my husband insane?" And I tell her the truth, that you're right and she's wrong.
Well, don't worry. There's the revenge is I get to talk to Meredith, so this can work.
God.
But look, this is an amazing time to be alive in so many ways. Sometimes we've looked at the last 5-6 years, and there were a lot of times when some of us thought this was the worst time to be alive, going through the craziness of people lying about a pandemic and then the actual virus and then, all of the DEI woke war on the cops. And just like we went through all this stuff and we were told that we had to accept the new normal. This was the new normal. And part of the new normal was that we had to check aside some of these policies that we thought worked, but we were told were really, old-fashioned, like peace through strength and America leading the world both economically and from a moral perspective. And, after them lying to us over and over about Trump was a warmonger and Trump is going to, bring America down and make everybody's life worse, they then somehow got Joe Biden into the White House and actually made our lives so much worse that it made a bunch of people that had gone along with this crap say we ought to give Donald Trump a second chance, and
Matt,
every aspect of the world.
Matt, this is Sean Kennedy here. I wanted to ask you a question. Obviously, as the head of the American Conservative Union, and obviously the preeminent conservative event in the United States, which is CPAC, what is going on with conservative youth? We've seen since this conflict began a somewhat dramatic and honestly shocking shift, not amongst Democrats who sort of expect liberals and Democrats to turn on Israel, but amongst young conservatives or young Republicans at least. What can we do to sort of reverse that trend?
Well, first of all, there's a reason why we have old people, because old people teach young people what the truth is. And I think one of the problems in the conservative movement is sometimes we do have a little bit of a cult of the next generation. A lot of people say, oh my God, we just got to convince the kids. We got to convince the kids, which is true. And, CPAC's always had a huge component of young people as a part of their conferences. But I think, we've never put them at the very center of it, that we want them there. They're critical. They're going to take over all these important roles. We want them all to run for office, et cetera. But there is wisdom in those who have lived a long life. There are a lot of cultures. I just returned from Taiwan where older people are listened to and respected. And I think that there's been a real attempt to pollute the minds of young people on all kinds of topics. We know that on marriage and the family and moral issues. And I think part of it is somehow Israel is in an apartheid state that exist to repress anybody who isn't Jewish. And I thought it was ironic. These are lies, and I think when Donald Trump went to the Knesset to get this much-deserved thank you for bringing stability and a ceasefire to the region, the release of these hostages, which we have focused on at every CPAC over the course of the last 2 years, and they're very incredible stories. I still can't believe they're out. I mean, I just really never believed that they'd all get out. But the point is this, which is, Israel allows people who are Muslim and Arab to even serve in the Knesset, and they're allowed to protest the President of the United States when he speaks to the Knesset because it's democracy. And they can all try to run down, but they allow for minority rights, including minority religious rights. And America does too, and there are preciously sad few countries that allow that.
Yeah, try that in any Arab nation. Matt Schlapp is our guest. You mentioned CPAC. This year in particular, you had the family members of hostages who are still being held. You also had some former hostages. I know that my life was altered after meeting them backstage and talking with them personally, looking in their eyes, knowing the hell that they went through. When President Trump arrived at the National Harbor before his speech, I understand he got to meet with these families privately. You were there. Without revealing too much, can you tell me that I don't think that he had met any of the hostage families before that moment? That must have made an impact and really sort of, he mentioned it from the stage. It must have, that moment at CPAC, Matt, must have sort of re-emphasized the priority here for him to try to free these souls.
Well, that's a really good point, Larry, and I hadn't contemplated that, but I think you're right, because I know what it was like for Mercy and me to actually, I remember talking to one young woman whose boyfriend was being held hostage. I talked to another gentleman whose brother was still detained, and I literally did. I didn't say it to them, but in my heart, I thought, my gosh, they're going to have to come to grips with the fact that how are they possibly going to get out alive, right? Like there's just no way. And then they started to release some, and then if your loved one was still in those tunnels after all this time, over 700 days, it's like I just don't know how they mustered the courage to get through all that. But one of the things about living through these dark years is you have the examples of heroes. Sometimes heroes do dramatic things. Sometimes heroes withstand terrible torture, and the indomitable human spirit comes through, and it demonstrates to all of us why you can't quit. By the way, Donald Trump wasn't taken hostage, but he was a victim of lawfare. They tried to take all this money and put him in prison, prevent him from running for president, and they just tried to destroy his spirit. I think there's a commonality between a political hostage and then these hostages who were just released in Israel and people around the globe. You have Jimmy Lai, who's in prison in China for simply wanting freedom in Hong Kong. So, there's too much of this going on around the globe. And the one thing I love, the most important part of Donald Trump being our president is that all the bad guys are squirming because they just don't know if they can manage around Trump. Trump simply, when he decides to focus on something, he makes their life very difficult, very painful. And what I would encourage President Trump to do is to keep making all the bad guys squirm. Let's keep giving pardons to people in America who are subject of lawfare and unfair situations, and let's keep pushing overseas. And bravo to Witkoff and Jared Kushner and the others who are playing important roles in all this. But America, if it decides to lead morally over the globe, we're unstoppable.
What I'm hearing from you, Matt Schlapp, CPAC, American Conservative Union, is that you, for one, you are not tired of the winning.
I am not tired of the winning. My gosh. But I tell you, I will admit, despite as optimistic as I've been about Trump, and as you know, I never took a step away from him. We stood by him throughout this whole decade, and I am still surprised at what he's able to get done. I mean, it does kind of shock me. Even times when I'm like, oh, that'll never happen. And then it happens. So, good for him.
Exactly. All right, Matt, give our best to the family. Thanks for joining us today. Appreciate
All right,
it.
bye, guys.
It's 7:15.
WMAL, making sense of the news. Live from the Home Paramount Pest Control Studios. Home Paramount, the leader in pest control since 1939. Your next $1,000 could be one text away. It's $5K a day on WMAL.
you'll remember the President of the United States, Donald Trump, has had a bit of an awkward relationship with the former Prime Minister, Justin Trudeau. In December, after Trudeau came hat in hand down to Mar-a-Lago to try to beg for a better relationship, Trump put out on his social media platform, "It was a pleasure to have dinner the other night with Governor Justin Trudeau of the great state of Canada." He's been trolling him, for months and months and months. And then it ended up diminishing Trudeau's standing, even in his own country. There was a vote of no confidence within his own party. He stepped down. They had a new parliamentary election. They've got their new prime minister there. It's Canada. Who remembers the name of the prime minister? Carney, right? Isn't it Carney? John Carney, I think. Mark, thank you for that.
Mark my words. It's not Jay Carney. That's the other guy,
no.
Media turned Obama flack. Yeah.
Definitely not. It's Mark the hair-lipped dog. I'll remember that all the time now. So you'll remember last week, Carney was in the Oval, and they were having one of those joint appearances. And it appears as though, even though politically these two are not on the same page, Carney is just as liberal as Trudeau was, but a little more serious at least. Trump was joking with him. Here, take a listen. Cut 15.
This is, in many respects, the most important.
The merger of Canada and the United States.
That wasn't where I was going. On this solemn day of.
You heard that he was saying this is a really important thing, and Trump goes, "The merger of Canada and the United States."
The merger of Canada.
Don't you kind of think when you see Trump do this stuff that he's like wearing a hard hat out like somewhere downtown New York building a new skyscraper? He's like, This is going to be the biggest building I've ever seen. When we take over Canada, it's going to be called the America Tower in our second capital. By the way, in terms of calling Trudeau governor, it's sort of inside baseball if you love Canada, like I may secretly love Canada. Is there actually the person above the prime minister in Canada is actually called the governor? They're the Queen's representative in Canada, the Governor General. So calling him the governor was actually promotion for Trudeau. So
that's funny. Well, technically, though, I think they call it a governor.
Governor. Because they're kind of British, but not really. By the way, Fidel Castro's son is no longer that, but he was spotted the other day. The joke is Justin Trudeau's real dad is Fidel Castro because they look like spitting images of each other.
That's right.
He was spotted the other day somewhere in public with an American celebrity. I'm blanking on who that was.
I have that story. Hang on, I'll get to that in a minute. But before we get to where Justin Trudeau is these days, because I think he has actually upgraded a bit. Yesterday at this international summit for the peace deal, Carney was caught on a hot mic moment with Trump, once again displaying their somewhat friendly and funny relationship. Here, take a listen. Cut 16.
I'm glad you upgraded me to president.
Great stuff.
It's good. I started.
We said great stuff.
See, he had erroneously referred to Carney as the president of Canada instead of prime minister of Canada, and you heard Carney say once again,
"I'm glad you upgraded me to president."
And then Trump said, "Oh, I didn't say governor." So it's actually, again, you kind of got to roll with Trump. And if you get it and you give back and sort of roll with him, I think that you have a better relationship, even when he says, some pretty diminishing jokes and statements. But you mentioned the former prime minister, Justin Trudeau. He was caught. The Daily Mail have these like camera lenses from England, the paparazzi, that are like the size of like, a sniper's scope, right? They can see like miles and miles away. And he was spotted on a yacht in Santa Barbara in a very warm, loving, almost erotic embrace with none other than astronaut Katy Perry.
What?
Yes. Katy Perry, fresh off of her breakup with Legolas. Orlando Bloom. Thank you, Orlando Bloom. Legolas. She's now rebounding with Justin Trudeau. And in fact, she's wearing a bathing suit. He's wearing jeans and topless. And in one of the pictures, he has his hand firmly ensconced around one of Katy Perry's legendary buttocks cheeks. What do you make of this, Sean?
Well, back to the potash exports from Saskatchewan. They
No.
a serious critical problem with our bilateral relations.
You agreed to co-host with me. It means you have to comment on Katy Perry's butt.
My kids like Katy Perry too much for me to say more than that, and the fact that there will soon be a merger between one Canadian and one American is too much for me to comment on.
Well, I think the merger's already happened, but whether it'll be formalized with an agreement contractually or spiritually is a whole other story. And by the way, ironically, I like Katy Perry quite a bit, and that's why I can only talk about her butt. It's 7:23. Coming up, we'll check in on the negotiations to reopen the government. Democrats still saying no. They're keeping you on furlough. They're keeping you out of work, or they're making you work without pay. What's with the Democrats? We'll ask Maryland Congressman Andy Harris next.
WMAL-FM, Woodbridge, Washington, a Cumulus media station. Making sense of the news. News Talk 105.9. News now. Now on 105.9 FM and streaming worldwide on the WMAL app. O'Connor and Company.
It is 7:37. It's O'Connor and Company, and it's a busy Tuesday morning here in your nation's capital. Coming up at 8:05, Alex Pleitsis used to work at the White House on hostage policy. We'll get his perspective on the peace deal in the Middle East and what's next. And then at 8:35, we'll speak with the Lieutenant Governor of Virginia, looking for your vote. She's Winsome Earl Sears, and boy, she is now in a dead heat with Abigail Spanberger based on the polls I'm looking at. It's Larry O'Connor with Sean Kennedy with us this morning. Good morning, Sean.
Good morning, WMAL. Sorry.
Oh, you've been
my
dying
Adrian
to do that.
Cronauer. I couldn't resist. I'm sorry.
No, it's understandable. It's impossible when you're doing mornings on a radio station not to do it once. But let's not let it happen again. Joining us right now, Congressman Andy Harris of Maryland. He's also the head of the Freedom Caucus there in the House of Representatives. Congressman, thanks for joining us.
Good morning.
Is it true that the Democrats really don't want to vote to open the government and get people back to work and the furlough and all that other stuff because they're excited about doing a big No Kings rally, that this is like some big publicity and fundraising event? Is that really the only thing that's stopping them at this point?
Well, this week I think it is. They're all excited about this. They're all worried that the radical left, which controls the party, would turn against them if they did something as rational as reopen the government. So I guess we're going to have to get past this weekend and see what happens next week.
There's no other, Speaker Johnson is under criticism because he's gone into recess, but there really isn't any work for the House of Representatives to do, is there?
No, there isn't. The bottom line is the work we had was to keep government funded past September 30th. The House did its job. The Senate hasn't yet because Chuck Schumer was holding it up. There are three rational Democrats in the Senate, but the rest, I guess, don't mind seeing these layoffs, seeing the furloughs, seeing all the problems that come with a shutdown. They didn't like shutdowns during the Biden administration, voted 13 times to keep the government open, but they just can't seem to do it when President Trump is president.
Can I do a quick follow-up? It seems as though the president and the administration has figured out a way to sort of shift some funds around over at the Pentagon so that troops can get paid. I don't know if that has been finalized yet. Democrats seem opposed to it. Is that unconstitutional from your perspective? I know you like our Constitution. There's no new money appropriated for pay, but if he can shift money around from one budget to another so that enlisted personnel can go, don't have to go without a paycheck, is there anything wrong with that?
I don't think there is. Apparently, they did find a loophole somewhere that allowed them to shift research and development dollars. But, of course, those are important as well. We have to make sure that our weapon systems are as good as our enemies' weapon systems. So that's certainly not the ideal solution. The ideal solution is just pass the government funding bill that the House passed, and let's get on with it.
Congressman,
this week we'll solve it.
Congressman, I want to shift you back closer to home since you're at the epicenter of what's going on there in Annapolis, and that is they're targeting you. The Democrats, particularly Governor Moore in Maryland, want to take your seat away from you. But you made a funny remark that you think you're welcoming your two other Republican colleagues into the House if they do that. Can you walk us through what exactly is going on in Maryland very briefly, and then what you think is going to happen?
Sure, absolutely. Look, the far left controls the Maryland Democrat Party, and we have a governor who wants to run for president, so he's going to have to appease the national Democrats who want redistricting to occur in Maryland, or at least an attempt at redistricting. With two of the four last governors have been Republicans, but they think that all 8 congressional seats should be Democrats. So I think they're going to try to redistrict again. They tried it in 2022. We took them to court. We prevailed at the first court level, and everybody laid down their weapons, and and everyone agreed to just leave the map more or less the way it was. And if they try it again, we'll go to court again. This time, we'll go all the way to the state Supreme Court. We'll appeal if it's an unfavorable decision at a lower court. And the Supreme Court, if they rule that partisan gerrymandering is unconstitutional in Maryland, as the lower court ruled in 2022, they could draw a map that has at least 2 Republicans and maybe 3 Republicans representing Maryland.
Congressman Andy Harris is our guest from Maryland, chair of the House Freedom Caucus. And back to the shutdown just quickly, because I know that there are a lot of people in your district who rely on the federal government either as a contractor or they work directly for the federal government. Certainly a lot of people listening today. What's your prediction here on how this ends, and at what point will it get resolved?
Well, I don't know. I thought the military pay would resolve it, but it'll be there are a couple of things that will help. One is we got to get past this weekend's far left rally in Washington, so the Democrats aren't afraid of their far left fringe. And then the next thing is the Democrats are going to have to deal with the layoff situation. The fact of the matter is that furloughs are different than layoffs. Furloughs, people get back pay. Layoffs are they're permanent. You lose your job. Yeah. As those start picking up, I think there's going to be a sentiment to move ahead. What I found in my district, for instance, it's interesting. The governor goes out and talks about National Farmers Day, which just occurred. But then his party is closing down the U.S. Department of Agriculture for the shutdown, which helps farmers get the aid that they need. So again, the Democrats are talking out of both sides of their mouth on this. They think government is essential, federal government's essential, but yet they're willing to shut it down.
Any thoughts quickly on the president's whirlwind trip there to the Middle East, the signing ceremonies, and his ability to get those hostages released after all these years?
Look, we watched history being made. That's all I can say. This is unprecedented. This is an opportunity for real Middle East peace. The Israelis have won the war. They have defeated Hamas, and I think that this could lead to a new era in the Middle East, and one that will be shepherded by President Trump.
Representative Andy Harris, thanks for joining us as always, sir.
Thank you.
It is 7:43.
Later this morning on the Chris Plante Show, now that President Trump has stopped what the Democrats called the genocide in Gaza, what will the Democrats chant rhythmically about next? 9 a.m. on WMAL.
7:48, Larry O'Connor here with Sean Kennedy. Sean, let me ask you a quick, it's a spot quiz. I'm sure you'll get the answer right. If you're a legal immigrant to this country and you've become a naturalized citizen, or if you're a green card holder and you haven't violated the law or you haven't violated the terms of your green card status here in America, do you have anything to fear from immigration control law enforcement officers? Will ICE apprehend you and deport you if you're a legal citizen or a legal immigrant?
Let me check my notes.
No, nothing to fear at all. Nothing to fear at all. The only way that ICE is going to do anything to you, and by the way, there have been 2 million self-deportations. There's been over 100,000 actual apprehensions and deportations. I assure you that if a citizen of the United States or a legal immigrant that had not violated the law or their immigration terms to get their green card, if they had been deported, we would have heard about it. Yeah. The only person we heard about was the MS-13 gang member who was actually apparently guilty of human trafficking and child porn. And they called him a Maryland man, but of course he was in the country illegally. All right, so that's why I'm really curious about this local news report. In Langley Park, Maryland's immigrant spirit endures despite ICE raids. And it goes on talking, first of all, they never use the term illegal immigrant. Everybody's an immigrant, of course, regardless of how they entered the country and remained in the country. And they point this out as they talk to these various Salvadorans and Guatemalans, et cetera. Get this. People are afraid to go to work. they're afraid to make a living. They're afraid because of ICE officers. If they're afraid to go to work because they're afraid of deportation, doesn't that mean they're breaking the law? The only reason to be afraid is if you've broken the law.
Well, it's actually people are afraid to continue to break the law because in most instances it's illegal to work illegally in the United States. And in order to facilitate that, you have to commit both identity theft, by using a fake Social Security, and tax fraud.
Yes.
So these are serious crimes that if there weren't an undocumented person without papers, whatever euphemism we're using these days, then they would go to jail. I mean, there's like American Greed episodes about committing identity theft and tax fraud. And this is all okay because these people came from another country. So there's obviously hypocrisy here. There's some other motivation driving this.
And listen, if media outlets want to do exposés on the businesses who are hiring these people illegally, I'm all for it. The businesses who are exploiting this cheap illegal labor, they should be exposed and they should also be prosecuted. This entire article, and you're seeing a big publicity blitz here in this local area focusing on Maryland deportations and ICE raids. It's all coordinated by this person who was featured in the article, Lindolfo Carballo. Get ready for it, Sean. Senior Director of Community Economic Development of the Latino Advocacy Organization, CASA. Oh, tell us about CASA, will you?
CASA is an activist group that has managed to get itself ingratiated into the local governments of Maryland, D.C., and Virginia. They take state grants. But, of course, multiple federal agencies, including the HHS and, those are rational things. Those are social services. But if the EPA and AmeriCorps are also funding CASA, then CASA turns around with its federal and state funding. Now, of course, they have some Chinese wall between these things, I'm sure, and donates to leftist politicians here in the District, Maryland, Virginia region, not the DMV, obviously. Where in Maryland you could get an illegal alien driver's license, by the way, just so at that DMV.
Yes.
And so, by the way, when I moved here 20 years ago, you knew when there was like a Maryland plate parked on your road, like all the time, you're like, that person's not here legally, because they would give people who were not legal driver's licenses and register their cars and all these other stuff. But then that's now everywhere does that here in the United States. So, but the point being is CASA is corrupt as all day long, if not legally corrupt, is taking tax dollars, politically activist, and it somehow portrays itself as some nonpartisan, non-political organization just out to help the Latino community.
They're just trying to help immigrants, of course, yes. And they are located in a 30,000 square foot mansion in Langley Park. That's not those aren't bad digs.
Wait. You're telling me a group called CASA has a Grande Casa.
Yeah, exactly. Casa Grande. They should change their name too. Oh man! And in this entire article, it takes multiple paragraphs to point out some of the workers are undocumented. You think? Also, by the way, not coincidentally, Langley Park is sort of the central clearinghouse for MS-13 gang members and members of Tren de Aragua. There's a coincidence. I wonder if the two things are related. It's 7:53.